Easter. Finally, spring has sprung. And the allergies and the pollen. And it was so fun to watch the little bunny rabbits. So I'm coming into their property and they're just bouncing all over the place this morning. It was fun. This morning, the title of the talk is I Manifest Myself. We'll give our cameraman a minute here. I'm going to be talking in the first half of the talk this morning from the Bhagavad Gita. And let me start with 3 quotes. It says, whenever there is a withering of the law and an uprising of lawlessness on all sides, then I manifest myself. For the salvation of the righteous and the destruction of such as do evil, for the firm establishing of the law, I come to birth, age after age. Whenever men become indifferent to their duties and responsibilities, and whenever unrighteousness and disorder increase, then indeed I manifest myself. And that's from Book 4 of the Bhagavad Gita. And then finally, to protect the virtuous, to destroy the wicked, and to reestablish the sense of duty and responsibility. Thus I manifest myself age after age. I'm surprised he's not right out here. Is that sacrilegious? Hopefully not. It's just the times that we have gone through the past 4.5 years. It's been interesting. So these sacred writings and readings, when compared to the times we're in, the uprisings around the world, the lawlessness going on in the world, genocides, epidemics, and disease, hunger and poverty and unlawlessness, and lies. Our hope for the future lies in the great avatar, in the Christ telling us that when these things are prevalent upon the planet Earth, then, quote, I will manifest myself, unquote. These quotations are from a sacred book called the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata, an epic poem handed down orally from generation to generation. And as we read these quotes, they almost sound as if they could have been found in the Holy Bible. However, when we read sacred truth, the truth of God, it will be found written in all religious texts from around the world from the beginning of time. Whether it be in the Holy Bible, the Quran, the Torah, the Bhagavad Gita, or in the writings of ancient cultures, we will see the reoccurrence of such truths. In different languages, in different religions and faiths, but despite these differences, the words will ring true to all seekers of truth. So as we celebrate Easter today, we must remember that the religious world is waiting for the return of their spiritual leader. And I take refuge in that common thinking, that commonality. So despite the differences of culture and language and religion and bias and prejudice, the majority do believe and are waiting for the return of their spiritual leader. In all the major religions, someone is expected. and his coming is anticipated. Always in the past, it has been the religious teachers of the period who have fostered and proclaimed this expectancy. And the time. This time has always been one of chaos and of difficulty, of a climaxing point at the close of civilization or culture, and when the resources of the old religions seem inadequate to meet humanity's difficulties or to solve the problems. The coming of the Avatar, the advent of a coming one, and in terms of today, the reappearance of the Christ, are the keynotes of the prevalent expectancy. When the times are right, the invocation of the masses is strident enough, and the faith of those who know is keen enough, then always he has come. And today will be no exception to this ancient rule or to this universal law. For decades, the reappearance of the Christ, the Avatar, has been anticipated by the faithful in both hemispheres, not only by the Christian faithful, but by those who look for Maitreya and for the Bodhisattva, as well as those who expect the Imam Mahdi. Christ comes forth for two reasons. One is a deep and unknown cause prompts him to do so. And two is the demand or the invocation of humanity itself. The return of the Christ is consequently a spiritual event, coming to us to bring about great changes or major restorations, to inaugurate a new civilization, or to restore the ancient landmarks and lead humanity nearer to the divine. Do you see how we are moving toward this as a humanity? I was just thinking on the way over here this morning about change and the anticipation of this Avatar. What is it going to be like? How are we going to be? How are we going to respond? We as a humanity, we as a family, we as a group. Will we respond with that old critical mind and skepticism and disbelief? I hope not, but I can't see otherwise, not yet. It's almost like, and this is just my own adventurous thoughts, is that it's going to take even a greater calamity than what we have recently been through as a world to accept that Avatar without criticism, without bias, without disbelief, because of need, that the need will be so vulnerable. I also believe that the Avatar is not going to be flying in on this spaceship and land, on the grounds of some particular country. Because that itself is going to create disbelief and bias and prejudice. And it's going to create superiority complex, look how great we are, complex. So this reappearance is going to have to be extraordinary. And when I think about in Agni Yoga the phrase divisibility of spirit, think about that. All lands will experience the return of Christ, the return of this avatar. All countries, the whole of humanity. Because surely the great ones know how bigoted and biased and prejudiced and separative humanity's thinking has become. See what I'm saying? So we as esotericists must be awake. We must be attentive to what is occurring all over the world. New movements that are starting into existence, into manifestation. There's a common word that esotericists are using these days, which is the new civilization. Is there a new civilization taking place in Russia? Is there a new civilization taking place in the United States? What about South America? What about Iceland? Where it's not just going to be one new civilization or one new culture, but it's going to be like a symphony orchestra. You know, all of these instruments playing in harmony, the harmony written by a master. So that's the way I like to think about the return of the Christ, the return of this great avatar. What is an avatar? Avatars are very advanced souls that come cyclically to the planet or to the solar system to lead humanity and all life within the solar system to a better life, into a great vision in harmony with the purpose of the solar life. Many believe such a time is imminent. In the New Testament, the first chapter of the Acts of the Apostles describes Christ's ascension and reappearance in this way. And a cloud received him out of their sight. As the disciples were looking up, 2 angels appeared and told them that the same Jesus taken up from you into heaven shall come again in the same way as you have seen him go. So that's something for us to think about. I think we would update the language a bit. You know, that's a language that we are pretty far removed from. But there's a lot of symbolism in it. See, like the word heaven is certainly a symbol, a great symbol. Angels. Just 2? See? Yeah, the same Jesus? From 2,000 years ago? The same Jesus? I'm waiting for lightning strike. Would we want to reincarnate 2,000 years from now as the same being? See, that's my point. Oh, God, I hope not. In a book from the teaching, it says, the task is, through meditation, to establish the knowledge of and the functioning of those laws and principles which will prevail in the coming era. The new civilization and the new world culture. Until the foundation is at least laid, the Christ cannot appear. If he came without this due preparation, much time and effort and spiritual energy would be lost. We must assume that there must be organized in the near future a group of men and women in every country who, under due and proper organization, will simultaneously and unanimously meditate upon those measures, basic laws upon which the rule of Christ will be founded. Now, here's another word, meditation. Men and women in every country with proper organization, simultaneously and unanimously meditate. Now, having been part of groups all over the world, not one group meditates in the same fashion. So we must think about and try to understand and define, in a broad sense, meditation. Meditation upon those measures, basic laws upon which the rule of Christ will be founded. See, we're not going to sit in front of our altar with a particular ritual from 1 to 10 and give 3 minutes to thought. So this would be a continuous meditation, and this continuous meditation means we have to be two things: awake and attentive. Meditation does not mean walking through our neighborhoods and into the office and into group activities with our eyes closed. And when we think of meditation, we think of closing our eyes, right? So this is a different kind of meditation, being awake and being attentive, and then we could throw in concentration. Being awake, attentive, and with concentration, really be aware of what new principles and laws are coming into manifestation already. That will be the rule of Christ upon which Christ will be founded. New principles, new laws. What are the laws? Perhaps the commandments. Where we don't know exactly what those basic rules will be, the teaching has given us preparatory information to live our life in such a way that as souls, we will be ready for the reappearance of this avatar and its army. I just had to throw that in. So the first, Christ commanded that you must love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your power. This is the first commandment. And the second, which is similar to it, is you must love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than this. But that second ancient commandment has been advanced. And you can see this in Agni Yoga, where it says, love your neighbor more than yourself. Do you even know your neighbors? We live in such an isolated situation. Our homes, all the windows are closed, the air conditioning is on, the TV is blaring. We have a neighbor. The Dalai Lama was asked in an interview, said of Americans, he said, you can travel all over the world, but not yet across the street to meet your neighbors. Number 2, pray and meditate. Daily, strive to contact the Spirit of the Christ. The meditation we experienced this morning and each Sunday, they are beautiful meditations that we can engage in, weekly and monthly. Each day we can pray and ask Christ to guide our hands and feet in the direction where we can best serve in his name. In the name of the kingdom of God. Well, we believe Christ is head of the hierarchy. See, we're not talking about a religious figure, but this great, holy, amazingly accomplished entity that we've given a name to. That name is Christ. And because we are so human in our mental body, that we have to put a name to everything, right? Otherwise, what would we do? So each day we can pray. Ask Christ to guide our hands and feet in the direction where we can best serve. and in the name of the kingdom of God. Number 3, and finally, the feminine element. Finally, because we as an esoteric community, we always talk about the feminine and the masculine, right? So up until this point, I've just been totally masculine oriented. Now we're going to talk about the mother of the world. So that's number 3. The teaching reminds us about the dual origin of the cosmos. The Master Moria said, cosmos exists in the greatness of the dual origin. The dual origin is the masculine and feminine principle. The feminine principle is called by many names. Mother of the universe, World Mother, and Sophia. To the esoteric Christian, she is known as the Holy Spirit, one of the divine triad. The age's wisdom, the perennial teaching, tells us that the mother of the world is the spiritual mother of every child of earth, whose heart is attuned to hers. That she is the initiator of the planetary hierarchy, the spiritual mother of all the Christs and Buddhas of human history. As we consider the name of the approach of the Christ, we must also consider that at the same time we will see the approach and the reappearance of the mother of the world, for it must be so. Helena Rourke says, the new epoch must manifest due respect to the mother of the world, to the feminine element. The bird of the spirit of humanity cannot fly with only one wing. This coming new epoch, in which we will see and experience the reappearance of the Christ, we are also going to realize the epoch of woman and create a golden balance in everything. Isn't this sane and in balance? Well, I can tell you, it's not to everyone. It's like 2 weeks ago on our YouTube account and the talk that I gave about hierarchy, this very ignorant person who is obviously a religious fanatic, says when Christ comes, he will smite down the hierarchy. And yet he listened to that talk, So something had to go into his psyche to really stir up, that strange thinking mind he had. I tried to take it off. I couldn't figure out how to get it off. Such is the world we live in. The teaching tells us woman must affirm herself, and that is why the sword of spirit is given precisely into the hands of woman. In the East, this epoch is noted as the epoch of Maitreya, the epoch of great compassion, and the epoch of the mother of the world. Now, interestingly enough, Venus, the planet Venus plays an important link to the mother of the world, as well as the Lord Maitreya. Helena Rourke tells us that the Lord Maitreya came from Venus at the dawn of the formation of physical man and woman. Helena Rourke wrote, "The star of the mother of the world is the planet Venus." In 1924, this planet, for a short time, came unusually near to the Earth. Its rays were poured on earth, and this created many new, powerful, and sacred combinations, which has already yielded results as slow as we are. It has already yielded its results. Look at the women that are now holding heads of state, powerful political positions all over the world. And finally, the United States has brought in a female vice president. It's slow, but it's happening. Many feminine movements were kindled by those powerful rays. It was in June of 2004 and again in June of 2012 where Venus once again passed directly in front of the disk of the sun. Can we see this as a sign of the mother of the world, or an increase in feminine leadership in preparation for the return of the Lord Maitreya and the mother of the world? Can the passage of Venus indicate the approach of the reappearance of a master, the birth of an avatar, or other great spiritual events in the world of humanity? We want this feminine energy in its truest sense, in its purest sense, to also be part of this reappearance, because it is the feminine energy that brings this sense of unanimity, unity, unconditional love. And without that, there's going to be a vacuum. And when there's a vacuum, that vacuum has to be filled, and it can be filled with the wrong energy. So when we are thinking about the return of the Christ, we must also, in my opinion, think about the return of the mother of the world. Now we know that there's a legend that talks about the mother of the world being a great lotus in space, and that all the petals of the lotus represent an aspect of the mother of the world. And every once in a while, an aspect of the mother of the world manifests in humanity. Now, this is where those words of being attentive, being awake, concentrate, are we seeing a petal of the mother of the world, or petals of the mother of the world in manifestation now, preparing the way, see, for the Lord Maitreya? How will we know this? This would be a woman of power. But her power is going to be a uniting power, not a separative power, not a dictatorship kind of power, not a loud, shouting, demonstrating, but a uniting strength and power. And pretty soon, I think when enough of these petals manifest themselves or overshadow those in preparation, we're going to see more love being emphasized, that love is as important as money. Love is as important as position. This is my vision. This is my ideal. This is what I so much believe in. So I would like to see this feminine of the two origins. I would like to see this feminine energy the presence of the feminine energy more in the media, in a loving, powerful, unifying way. But we have to be receptive. We have to see it. We have to accept it. I remember, this is going back a long time ago, when I was in Florida and I was officiating as a pastor at the time for a couple marrying. And it was a large wedding, and there were several ministers there. And two of them came up to me and said, why are you here? I'm in my pastoral robes. And I said, I don't understand. Where's the minister of your church? I said, but I am the minister of that church. After the wedding was over, they came over and said, thank you. It was a beautiful wedding. When I would attend the ministerial association there, I was the only woman, and there was one nun. And so it was an excruciatingly difficult experience for me. Because they'd always say, what corner is your church on? That's the first thing. I said, we don't have a corner. And then they would invite other pastors, as speakers for during the lunch or after lunch. It was always a man. And they would always talk about their wives. And finally, I just couldn't stand it anymore, and I went up to this, what I thought was a kindly pastor, and I said, let me introduce myself to you. I'm an ordained minister. And I said, so when you talk, please don't just speak in the masculine, but you're going to see more women ordained into the ministry as the years go by. So I would like to hear more of the inclusiveness of the feminine in your talk. So that was fun. Yeah. But we have to speak out. And my point is, women have to support this idea. They have to be the spearhead of this idea to accept women in positions of power. Not to look at the masculine gender as being the only entity that can move mountains or make global decisions. I cannot begin to tell you, my experiences are not like this anymore, but in the first 20 years, they were, well, I don't want to come to the group because there isn't a man leading it. I think that women can be feminine and powerful at the same time. I think they can be loving and powerful in a position of responsibility. They don't have to pretend to be like a man. Okay, so I'm going back to my notes now. Okay. We must align our heart to the feminine principle, to the mother of the world. Once we align ourselves with the mother of the world, then let us say, let there be light, let there be love. Number 4, virtues. Each day or each week, select one virtue you feel you are weak in and that you need to strengthen and practice and develop. Remember, virtues are made of the nature of the soul. As you practice virtue, it puts us in contact with the treasures of our chalice. To develop a virtue means to associate ourselves with the cosmic entity who is the source and the embodiment of that virtue. virtues such as, and these are the ones I selected: harmlessness, right speech, selflessness, stability, humility, temperance, joy, and contentment. Isn't that an interesting virtue? Contentment. Number 5, service. Each day, ask yourself how you can help another person. Ask forgiveness from someone that you have harmed in the past, or even forgive yourself of various things that you are carrying guilt about. Service means that you are giving yourself to others as a soul, that you are creating a soul-to-soul relationship. Think about this. A soul-to-soul relationship changes the whole environment, the whole atmosphere of a relationship when you make it a soul-to-soul relationship. Because in so doing, you create right human relations. Christ said, "A new commandment I give you, that you love one another, just as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this, every man shall know that you are my disciple, if you love one another." That new commandment is now a very old commandment. As we look objectively throughout the world, from man to man, woman to woman, family to family, church to church, nation to nation, we have been successful in carrying out. Have we been successful in carrying out this commandment? When Christ and the mother of the world return to humanity, will we be ready? Number 6, purification of the heart. Throughout childhood and on into adulthood, our heart accumulates many pains and rejections. If we do not purify those experiences from our heart will darken to the point where we can no longer love unconditionally. It's a fact. This is a fact. We can no longer love unconditionally as a result of the accumulations of these pains and rejections. We will, in other words, be unable to find compassion, that all-inclusive and understanding love. As we undergo the purification of the heart, we will soon live a life that understands beyond. Listen, this is so beautiful. As we undergo the purification of our heart, we will soon live a life that understands beyond the limitation of time, beyond evil thoughts, evil plans, hatred, and separatism. It is through a purified heart we will recognize the radiant energy we're going to recognize the radiant energy of the Mother of the world and the Christ upon their reappearance upon our planet. Okay, so how are we going to purify our hearts? I know you're dying to know. Okay, the first is, I picked out 7 points. Overcome selfishness. 2, develop the spirit of aspiration, devotion, admiration, and a life dedicated to higher ideals. 3, clean your vanities. 4, renounce your ego. 5, this is a big 5. Do not try to control the lives of others. It's a big one. 6, do not speak evil. 7, try to see the beauty in everyone. And let me close with this. The time of Easter is the time of resurrection of the Christ principle in our heart. So that's Easter for us. Thank you for joining us this morning.